So welcome back to this next series. We're going to be in the last series we created our splash screen and we did some interaction on page load, which waited for 1000 milliseconds, and then we show the onboarding screen. The next phase will be to work on the onboarding page itself. So now what we need to do is I'll just get rid of it. What we've learned using dynamic panels, we will be using some of that skills in this lesson. So what we need to do is an onboarding screen normally takes shape whereby you show the user what the app is all about. This is where you kind of appeal to the user. So once you show the user how the app works or the functionality or the benefit, then the user will be able to proceed to a page whereby they will be able to log in. So what we need to do, we need to change the name of this because we just copied that page. So we need to change it and say onboarding container. Once we've named this page, what we need to do, let us get a button which we're going to show to the user to go into the main app. So I'll just create this button and I'll just place it here. I'll highlight this and align it properly so it's in the middle. So we have it. So I'm just going to make sure this is back to 0. So we align this and make the center. So I'll bring this down a bit. So once we've done that, then we can name this button, let's say get started BTN. Alright, so we have get started BTN. This is what the user is going to press or click, and then they go onto the landing page. So I'm just going to call this get started. Now we can give this button a bit of shadow, and I'll just make this 3, and we can remove the border for this text so this button looks okay. Now what we can now do is we can add our dynamic panel to show different states of our onboarding. So I will drop a dynamic panel somewhere here, and I will drop this dynamic panel up to here. I think I'll just move this a bit like this. And then what we need to do next is to add our dynamic panel state, because once we are swiping left right, we want to indicate which screen or which state of the dynamic panel we are in. So I'll grab this eclipse and I'll just reduce it a bit to, I'll say 15 for now, and then I'll duplicate this into 3 places, then give it a bit of space, and I will say distribute vertically, and I will say align middle. Once we've done that, we'll place this here. I'll just place this here, and I'll group this for now, and then we can add something inside our dynamic panel. So what we will call this, how it works underscore DP, and then the state we're going to use same thing for the state. So in the state, I'll go to the state, double click here and go into each of the state, create more state, and we can come here and increase this a bit. So once we have that, we can add an image here, or what I'll just do, I'll just add a placeholder here, and we can call this placeholder, I'll say state 1, and then I'll duplicate this and I'll add here and say state 2 and paste it here as well and say state 3. So once we've done that, let's close this. We have our state for our dynamic panel. Now we need to add some interaction here, some interactivity here, so that when we are changing the state on swiping left and right, we will be able to change the state based on what we have. So I'll just right click here and go to I'll just come here and say actually not that's I'll come and say mouse over here under properties, then I'll say mouse over. What we want to do, we want to maintain the same color, so I'll just say fill color. We're just going to say black. Actually, we can remove the line so that we don't have line at all, so I'll just remove this line. And I will say mouse down, remove the line as well, and say fill color dark, and selected we will say remove the mouse as well, and then say fill color dark. So I'll say OK to this. Now what we need to do, let's just so we have this now, it's done. Another bit of interaction we will add is once this page load, we want to make sure that this button is not showing, this button is hidden. So, and then we want to make sure that we have the state 1 showing, and then we want to make sure this button is selected because we are on state 1. So we just had that here using onPageLoad event, and we'll say onPageLoad, and I'll just reduce the size a bit and so that we can see properly. So first thing we need to hide, I will say show and hide. We want to hide this button, so we will hide this button. So we're not going to see it on page load, and we are going to say selected. We want to say the eclipse, which is the one eclipse. We're going to set the value as true. What we could have done is we could have named this eclipse as 1. So I will just say indicator 1, and I'll copy it and use it for both indicator 2, and here I'll say indicator 3. So let's go back to our onPageLoad event, and we have here indicator, so we're not going to use it as indicator 3, we're going to use it as indicator 1, which is value true. And the next thing we will do is that on page load we're going to have this anyway, which is the state, and I don't think we need anything for now. So we close that, save, view our prototype, and we will see we have hidden the button, and this is showing. So what we need to add the interactivity is when we swipe left and right, we want to be able to display each of these states. So what we're going to do, we're going to apply that interaction here, and we will say left and right. So I'm just going to go to the event. Now we need to add this to, we need to make this a dynamic panel to achieve that. So I'll convert this container to dynamic panel, and I will say onboarding container DP, which is for the dynamic panel. So once we've done that, we can be able to say on swipe left and right, then we want to show this. So we can go to on swipe left, and we will say on swipe left, we want to set the dynamic panel state of how it works. We want to set it to previous because we are swiping left, and we can just wrap from first to last depending on what we want, and we can say OK. Then same thing, I'll just copy this and paste it for a swipe right, and I'll just change the previous to next. And we have this save. Let's preview our prototype and let's see what happens. We refresh and we can swipe. As you can see, it's changing from 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's changing as that, and it's starting from 1, 2, 3 like that. So we are changing. Now what we need to do is that as we are changing to the state, we should be changing the indicator so that we'll know where the indicator is. So what we need to add here is on swipe left. No, what we need to add on panel state change, and then we will set the indicator here. So we will go to the onboarding container and say on panel state change, we want to set disable. But before we do that, we will add a condition and say the panel state of this, which is how it works. If it's state 1, we want to set the indicator 1 value to true, and we want to set other indication value to false. So I will set this to false, set this to false, and say OK. Now I'll just copy both of these, and we will go back to the on panel state change and add the else condition. If it's in state 2, I'll say OK and then paste what we copied, and I will copy again and go back to on panel state change, add a condition. So here and say state 3, OK, OK, and we will paste. Now we just need to change it and say what we want to show. Once the panel state is second, we want to make sure that the first one is false and the second indicator is true. And on the third, we want to make sure the third is true and the first and the second is false. So we save that. But once the indicator gets to third, we want to show this button for get started. So we will add it here and say the get started button, we want to make sure not show now, no, not set. We want to make sure we show this, so we're going to show the button indicator. So once we show that, we can even make it fade. So we say OK. So let's test it. And we can 1, 2, 3. Once the panel state change is 3, we want to show this. Alright, on page load, we've already hidden it. So what we just need to do, we don't need to add it. We don't need to hide it here. We just need to remove this hidden and then just hide it manually, so that when we get to the third state, it will show by itself. So now let's see. Let's see why that is not working. Let's preview it from another browser and let's see what's happening. 1, 2, 3. Alright, what we need to do, let us go back to this next thing, and this selected here, which is okay. Now we have this set panel state. We need to remove this actually and just place this here, and we need to remove this set selected. Let's save, refresh. It's still not changing. Let's look at why it's not changing. Sometimes if we have, okay, let's look at it on select, and let's not wrap from first to last for now. Or actually we can leave it from next to previous. So we are selecting that on panel state change. let's leave it for now. Let's not use that. So we save this. Panel state change. So if it's first state, second state is going to show. Yeah, it should work. So let's do that now. One. Okay, I think we are mistaking the left and the right. Once we are swiping left, we want to show previous, and once we are swiping right, no, okay. Once we're swiping left, we want to show next. And once we are swiping right, we want to show previous. I think that is what we need. Meaning if we are swiping like this, we want to show 2, we want to show 3, and if we are swiping like this, we want to show 3 and want to show 2. So now on panel state change, if panel state equals 3, we want to show get started button, and we want to bring this to front, and we want to make sure that this, the third eclipse is true and this is false, which is fine. So let's try that again. Panel state equals state 3, we want to show that. So we save that and we go 3. It's not working. Let's see why this is not working. This get started button should show, and this indicator should show as well. Let's see what we are doing wrong here. We have this indicator here. If panel state is 3, then the first indicator value is true. On page load, we are setting this to be true. And once we say left, we want to, on panel state change, we want to show that indicator. Okay. Now we're not gonna add this to it, so we're gonna copy it here, and I think we're gonna paste it here on the main on panel state change. Not the container, but the dynamic panel of how it works. So if we go now 2, 3, we'll see it, and if we return back, it should hide that as well. So we can now add something here. So let's say if this is 1, we're going to, actually what I'm just going to do, I'll close this and I'll copy this, and then I can paste it here, then change here and say hide, and I'll paste it here and then I'll say hide. So that means once we move away from the first state, we're not going to see the button anymore. This is just going to hide, and this is going to show, and this is going to hide, and this is going to show, and we can't continue because there is no more anymore. So we just go hide, and we can go from left. So we can see now that we've prototyped it the way an onboarding is going to work. So if we have any design, we can add it here, and our indicator is just going to work basically as we've done it. So this concludes the onboarding, and the next thing we can add another interaction here to go to the next page. So we will go to the next page here. What I'll do, I will duplicate this page and I'll call this page landing. This is where we're going to prototype next our landing screen for the user to provide an option to log in or to sign up. So I'll move this underneath here so that we can have this, and what I'll just do, I'll select everything and delete it, and I'll grab the splash screen here, paste it here for now, and I'll say landing container. So what we need to do, we need to add something here and say on click event of the button once it's available. Then we can add on click event and say open and go to this page. Let's save it, and now let's test it one more time. We have our page, we can scroll there, 1, 2, 3, it shows, 2, it disappears, 1, it disappears. On page load, we have this showing automatically. Our state is 1, and once we change it to 2, we change it to 3, the get started appears, and we can click on the button which goes to our main landing page. So the way a mobile app works is that the splash screen and the onboarding, it's never gonna be the user will not be able to go back to that screen once they've installed the app. So on our next page, we're not going to add a back functionality to go back to the onboarding screen. It's not going to happen because that is not how a mobile app works in the real scenario. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson, and I will see you in the next lesson shortly. Thank you. Bye for now.